So welcome everyone to dotCMS's Winter 2024 product webinar. I'm Victoria. I run marketing here at dotCMS, and I'm super happy to have our all-star product team here with us today. Will, Freddie, John, and Damon, who will be going through with us all the great things that have been launched over the past few months since our last update in May, and a sneak preview into what we're looking at developing and releasing to you guys in 2024. So the recording will be sent out after the presentation. Ask any and all questions that you may have for these guys in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those questions both like during the session as well as we have tons of time at the end. So feel free to ask all the questions you have. And if we don't have time, then we will follow up with you through email, of course. But with that, I will pass it off to our team here to get going.
Great. All right, so the experiments feature, we have actually finally released it now. We've been talking about it a while and building it. It allows you to perform A/B testing on your pages. It's built into dotCMS, so there are other tools out there that you can use for A/B testing, but they require you to go to a different tool, and they require you to get your links and sync it all up. And this is all built in, and it's literally, we'll show you in a video in a second here. It really takes as little as a few minutes to set up an experiment, and then you can go check the results in real time as they're coming in your experiment. This is great for marketers to help you figure out the best version of a page and try different variants of it. And it's designed to make it really easy for your content editors and your marketers to build these. I think we can go to the video here as a quick example. The dotCMS experiments feature allows you to perform A/B testing or simple multivariate testing on your existing dotCMS pages. We're going to click through into this Colorado page to see what it looks like. You'll see we're in the normal dotCMS page editor, and on the bottom right here there is an A/B icon which will get us to the experiments. I'm going to click through to this to show the experiments on this page. Since we don't have one, I'm going to create a new experiment, and I'm going to call it Optimize Promotion. And I'll add it here. Now, once the experiment is created, we can see the different properties of the experiment. The first thing you'll see is that we have variants. These are different variations of the page which we're going to be comparing. We start with the original and we can add new variants from there. There is a goal which we're going to set for this particular experiment. There's a bounce rate, exit rate, URL parameter. We're going to set the reach page goal, and this says that when a user reaches the experiment page and then they reach another page after that, we're going to consider it a conversion. Now we're going to define the page we want them to reach by saying that the URL of that contains store. What we're trying to do is maximize the click-throughs to our store with the promotion. Now, there's also a traffic load that you can set if you want to set up your experiment to have less than 100% of the traffic to this page, and you can schedule the experiment to start and end at some point in the future. I'm going to leave those at the default for now. Now, I need to create a variant. I'm going to create a new variant here, and I'm going to call it Add a Banner. Now, when I create a variant, it copies the original page. So my variant begins looking like the original page. I'm now going to go edit this, and you'll see that I'm back into the dotCMS page editor, and I'm going to just make a really simple change to this. This page, you'll see it has text. It doesn't have any images in it. I'm just going to go add a banner here and drop the Colorado and the Rockies banner in there. I'm going to consider that done. Now I'm going to go back, and I've got it set up. I now have two variants, the original, and I've got Add a Banner. You'll see that they are set up with a 50-50 weight. You can actually choose if you want to change the weight. You can route more people to either the original or one of the variants if you want. We're going to leave it at 50-50 here. And now that I've got everything set up for the experiment, I'm going to go ahead and start it. The experiment was started successfully. Now we need to collect some data on this. So what I'm going to do is pause for a moment while I go generate some data, and then we'll come back and take a look at the results. All right, now that I've taken the time to generate some data, let's click into the experiment to look at the results. You'll see at the top here, it shows us how many sessions have been routed to the experiment so far. And what I did to generate data was I just created some sessions. I went to the page the experiment is running on, and dotCMS automatically randomly assigned each of those sessions to either the original page or to the variant. You'll see that we have a chart in the middle, which I'm going to come look at in a moment here. And you'll see on the bottom we have a summary table. Now in this summary table, you're going to see we show the original and we show each of the variants. We show the number of sessions that were routed to each of these and the number of conversions, and we calculate the conversion rate. There's two other numbers here you see, the probability to be best and the conversion rate range, and these are calculated using the Bayesian statistics. Coming back up to look at the chart, you'll see we have a simple chart here. This shows us the conversion rate per day for both the original and each of the variants. Now, we are showing a single day here, so this is a very simple chart. When you have a longer running experiment, you're going to see a conversion rate value for each of the days in the experiment. There's also a Bayesian chart. If you click on this, you're going to see a probability distribution calculated using the Bayesian statistics. Finally, coming back down to the summary table, you'll see that for each of the variants, you have the option to promote that variant. So if at any point while the experiment is running or after the experiment is completed, you decide that you want to use this variant as your page, you can hit the promote button. That will stop the experiment if it's still running, and then it will overwrite the original with the variant that you just promoted. So this allows you to very easily decide that you've got a variant that's working better and to replace the original page with the new, better working version of that page. All right, so I see we've got a few questions here. I'll try to, we're a little short on time, so we can't answer everything fully, but let me try to get a couple of these. So one question was, for the A/B testing, can personas be used instead of page variants? Right now, we have not connected this explicitly to the personas. So if you were to set up a variant and you wanted it to differ by personas, you're going to have to set up the page itself to differ by personas in that respect. Does the website need to be served directly by dotCMS for this to work? Right now, this is only being rolled out for dotCMS Cloud customers. The actual code, the actual infrastructure is there, so that could potentially be used for on-prem customers, but there is an infrastructure behind this. So there's actually, there's a database where all this information is stored and where we do the aggregation of the data. So that's not something we're currently have available for on-prem customers, but it's something that we may consider doing in the future.
Yeah, and I think I think also what was being asked there was, does dotCMS need to do the rendering, or could it be used headlessly? And in this first pass, dotCMS does need to be doing the rendering, but we are currently looking at enabling it headlessly. There's nothing in what we built here that couldn't work headlessly and won't. So that was when we designed it. We intended it to work both headlessly and headfully, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's good, unless there are any other major questions there.
There's a question on what if our site's fronted by a CDN, will it still work? And it will still work. The way it works is it basically tests to see whether there's on client side, it basically tests to see whether there's an experiment, and if so, does the math and does a redirect to one of the variants if it's going to use one of those variants, and that will work as well, even if you're being served by CDN.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, from a technical perspective, there's JavaScript on the page that's actually helping to serve that CDN. And so that's client-side rendered, which means that even if you've got it served in a CDN, the JavaScript's still going to be on each client.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, and now that we're talking about headless, that's perfect. So we work on the new headless editor. It's a cleaner, faster, and more responsive interface. On the turn of the UI, we try to keep it as familiar as possible for the people used to work with their page editor. And we have a demo. Big, if you can go to the next one.
Yeah. Wait, real quick, I mean,
this.
just taking a quick step back, guys. What this headless editor is some of you might be using what we call edit mode anywhere currently, which is sort of a visual editor for headless implementations in the page. This is a brand new pattern doing basically the same thing in a different way, and it's much less invasive in terms of your JavaScript client code, and also way faster. So yeah, go ahead.
So
After you
here
clone the
we're providing
example, fire up your favorite
we're
terminal
providing
and
an
run
example of how to
npm
run it.
install.
So yeah,
Give
sorry.
it a
This is an
second to
example we're providing that you're going to be able to use. Just clone it from a repo, and this is how you have to run it.
finish, and now rename the nexample file to m.local. Edit that file and add the .cms host and the .cms out token. In the app folder, we're going to find the page component, and here we can see how we initialize the .cms client, and below we are using the .cms client to fetch the page from the page API. Finally, we just pass the components we want to use to render each piece of content, and we're good to go. We just need to run npm run dev, and this will start the Next.js dev server. Now we just open our favorite browser, pointed to localhost 3000, and this is the .cms page being rendered with Next.js.
Now, in the next slide, I have a video of this same page running in our new headless API, in the new headless editor.
After you clone the example, fire up your favorite terminal and run
Is the-
npm install.
Is the next slide? There you go. So this is the exact same Next.js app running in my local environment, which means that you can work right there. You don't need a tunnel, you don't need a node server or anything. It's just your regular Next.js or Angular app, anything you need. And we just connected directly to dotCMS, the new headless editor. And you can drag, drop, add new content, remove content, etc. right there. You can either edit the template. And as you can see, it's very, very fast and slick. And we're providing, along with this, the Next.js example. We choose Next.js as the first one that we want to provide. And we want to listen from you guys. What do you guys think we should do next for these examples, right? We're already thinking Angular and Vue.js, but definitely React was kind of like the first one.
Yeah, it would be great, guys, to get some feedback from you all to what frameworks you guys want us to take on next. So this pattern, this edit mode anywhere pattern, could be applied across all different kinds of frameworks. So we're starting with Next just because it's big, but we're happy to prove it out against Vue or Vux or Angular or whatever the framework du jour is.
Yeah, and along those lines, in the next slide, we also bringing a new JavaScript SDK that we use to. These are the libraries that we use to build the Next.js example. Right now we have 3 libraries in our full SDK suite. One is the one that we use to connect with our endpoints. We're calling it dotCMS client. Then we have another one to that brings some React components to render rows, columns, containers, and all those sort of things. And then we add a specific one for Next.js because Next.js have a specific routing system that we wanted to take advantage of. So we created that. And with these 3 libraries, you can be up and running in literally 5 minutes. Especially now that we have the demo, you can literally clone it, point it to your .cms, give me the component for the content types you want to render in this page, and you're good to go. These libraries, go to the next slide, please, are already in npm. So you can just run npm install at .cms, which is the new organization. And we have client, React, and Next.js. And we're probably going to keep bringing new libraries for other frameworks and other approaches. Along with editing, we're not only focusing on editing the pages, we're also improving the editing content as a whole, right? So we're revamping the content screen. we're trying really hard to make it faster and lighter, and to give more customization for the customers and for the users. But specifically, we wanted to give you creative freedom to everybody, because we know that this is probably one of the most important sections in the whole dotCMS back office. On the next screen, we got a video on the ideas that we're handling right now. This is starting from the content search screen. So we're experimenting with the idea of just give the user a sliding form that they can work, and they can just make it big, make it small, we're taking very serious about customization and about screen real estate, and we just want to give that control back to the user. So this is what we're working along with a new edit mode. And yeah, any feedback? We're redoing every field from scratch. And yeah, they're looking pretty good right now.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how we're going to roll this out, Freddie, or what the plan is?
Yes. So the idea of this is we're going to set in the content types a control that is going to allow you to basically enable this new experience for specific content types. So that way you can start testing this out. And if it doesn't work for you right now at this moment in the state that it is, you can roll it back and keep using the previous one until it's 100% ready. So it's going to be, again, under your control.
And we also got the question, Freddie, does the headless editor work with Vue?
Yes, it's work with Vue. We don't have a Vue library right now. So that means that if you want to use Vue, you're going to have to create your own components to render the layout. But you can use the dotCMS client to interact with our APIs, specifically with the page API and the navigation API, and then bring the library to your Vue.js. And then with that data, you can render your page as you need.
I also think if you do have custom requirements like that, reach out to us, reach out to your customer success, and bring them to us, because we would be happy to work with you to make it work and to kind of prove out a POC type library to show that it can work with Vue or Angular or whatever frameworks you're using. That's the new content editing screen.
Yeah, just to kind of explain the way it is, we fetch the data from the page API, we render the components, and we just need to add some markup specifically to the components, to the HTML in the components, and we need to emit some messages to the editor in order to make this work. And because we already did that with React, it just basically look at those React components and just mimic that into Vue components and Angular components, and you name it.
Right.
But what I'm trying to say here is that we make very sure that we use web platform technologies and not get vendor locked to any framework. So everything that we use is translatable to other frameworks fairly easy.
And the next example that Freddie was showing is also part of our GitHub, our core GitHub repo. So it's a we see these examples as core to what we're doing, and if you want to play around with the next example, you can go and check that out. But it's not even in a separate repo; it's just part of our mono repo there.
Yeah. Again, the libraries as well are there in our mono repo.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, .ai. So as everybody I'm sure is aware, AI sort of came out in 2023. It started early in 2023, and we've talked about it quite a bit as we've been building things out. But really, our goal for adding AI capabilities is to make it, to be able to build it in seamlessly for your users. We know that some customers actually can't use AI, and that's fine. But for those that do, we have an AI plugin. And what this does is it allows you to use generative AI to generate content, as well as semantic AI to do things like really sophisticated search. And so we have built into the block editor now, there's a plugin, and when the plugin's installed in the block editor, you can generate AI. You can use AI to generate text, and you can use AI to generate images. There's an advanced semantic content search, and we've built it up so that you can create your own chatbots on your site fairly easily, as well as we've added some customization to workflows, and we've added velocity methods. So part of the goal when we built this was to say that, hey, right now we're supporting the OpenAI, which is a particular AI vendor. But in the future, there's different people that are going to want different vendors. And so what we wanted to do was provide an interface in dotCMS that's a standard interface, so that if you, let's say you started out with OpenAI today and later on you wanted to change to Google Bard or something else, you could change that without having to go and rewrite all your code, right? So you have kind of a standard API. There's a web API, there's standard velocity methods, and you can use those in dotCMS and then not be tied to one particular vendor. This is, if you've got content editors and you want to give them the ability to use AI to generate content easily, that's one of the benefits here. The I'd say the greatest work we've done, and the stuff that you're going to see the most benefit from, though, is if you and your development teams want to use AI within your site and build it in, we've added things here to make that easier for you. I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide. All right, so again, we got a little demonstration video here of what the content editor experience is using the .ai tool. Okay, we're going to do a really quick demonstration here of how to use the dotCMS AI plugin to generate content in dotCMS. I'm going to go ahead and add new content, and this is going to be a blog entry for our demo travel site. And I want the AI to generate pretty much everything in this blog. We've got an image, we've got the title, we've got the teaser. I'm going to get all of that. But what I'm going to do is start down at the blog content, which is in the block editor, and I'm going to start with AI content. And you'll see it says ask AI to write something, and I'm going to say write a blog entry about the 3 best hiking trails in New Zealand. Hit enter and let that go. Now this is using the OpenAI API, so you should know that there's not any privacy concerns with that. You'll see that this came back with an article here. If I scroll down to the bottom, you're going to see I have a few options. I can accept it. I can say, hey, I don't like it, I want to regenerate it, or I can delete it. I'm going to go ahead and accept it. And you'll see it gave me a title, an introduction, a paragraph on each of the 3 hiking trails that I was looking for, and a conclusion. And I'm going to go back and steal the title here, because again, I want the AI to do all the work. And I'm going to scroll back up to the top and drop that in for the title. Now, the next thing I want the AI to do the work on is the teaser. And we've got an introduction here, an introductory paragraph, and I want to take this, but I don't want a whole paragraph. I just want a sentence. So what I'm going to do is go back here, and I'm going to use the AI content again. And I'm going to say, write a 1-sentence teaser for the blog article with the following introductory paragraph. And then I'm going to drop that in there. And I'm going to let this do the work for me. And you'll see again, it gave me 1 sentence here. I can go ahead and accept that. And I'm going to cut this guy. And I'm going to paste that as well back up here in the teaser. All right, so I have a title, I have a teaser. The last piece of this blog that I want the AI to generate for me is the image. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back down to the image, and I'm going to do this a couple ways so you can see some of the capabilities. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say the AI image. And what I'm going to do is let it auto-generate it for me. And what this is going to do is look at the content I already have in the blog, in this block editor, and I'm going to generate an image. And I can give it some parameters if I want. So for example, I can say I want it to be photorealistic, and I want it to be warm colors. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and generate it. Now it'll go off, and this is going to send it off to the OpenAI DALL-E API. And depending upon where you are, this can take anywhere from, let's say, 20 to 40 seconds if you're in the US or the EU. If you're in other countries, sometimes it'll take a little bit longer. It just really depends on where OpenAI has their infrastructure. Now you'll see this is actually a pretty nice picture, but it decided to throw some text in there. That's probably not quite what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, I don't actually want this one. You will notice that it did a fairly good job of picking an image for me just based on my text, but I'm going to be a little bit more specific here. And I'm going to go to the AI image, and this time I'm going to say I want a photorealistic image of a hiker in nature that looks like New Zealand. All right, and we'll generate that one. Okay, so now we've got the image. I'm going to go ahead and accept it. And for this particular content type, the image is a separate field, right? The image that was generated in the block editor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it and I'm going to save it so that I can get it into the content type in a different field. And this is really simple. I'm going to right click here and save the image. You're not going to see everything pop up here because the screen capture is not going to get it. But I'm going to go ahead and save it. And then I'm going to go back up to the top here and I'm going to choose it. And now we have the image. So I now can save and publish this. And we can go ahead and see that this now added a new blog entry that was entirely written by the AI. All right, and we had some questions here, one of which I answered. I wrote the answer, but I want to answer for everybody. So this is what we've provided with the AI plugin is it's not a service where you're paying us for accessing the AI capabilities. We've set it up right now. It'll go to OpenAI. It uses your own OpenAI API key. So it's free from dotCMS. It costs nothing for you to use this. You'll end up paying OpenAI for any usage that you have of their service. Okay. And I think we had some other questions that were answered, but I don't see any more. So let's move along.
Cool. Hey, real quick, I think this was a different slide, but that's okay. We'll go through it. I thought Will made some changes to it. Maybe he had a different one. We've added a command line interface tool, or we've enhanced the command line interface tool we had. So if you're a developer, CI/CD stuff, we're working on continuous integration, continuous deployment. CLI is really great for being able to script that moving content from one system to another. You pull content out of one system, drop it in another place, add in whatever GitHub actions you want to add. Just really make sure deployments go a lot smoother, a lot quicker. Yeah, just kind of keeps everything a little bit more sane. So it's this concept of decoupling, or just kind of being able to script this moving content from one place to another, really, separating your content from your code. Yeah, if you're familiar with the CLI, great, and they're just kind of nice for keeping everything going smooth.
Yeah, and yeah, I did add some slides, David. Sorry to surprise you like that. Yeah, the way that you're going to install the CLI, it's going to be an npm install. It's a new CLI. We've had an example sort of bash scripts CLI, but this is a new CLI. We're also going to be providing a GitHub action that you can use to keep a GitHub repo in sync with your dotCMS installation. If you go ahead and hit next, Vic. The big story here with dotCLI is really, we need to really codify the idea of separating content from code and configuration. In dotCMS, our underwriting philosophy is everything's content, right? And that sort of was a beautiful thing to say back in 2012, and now it sort of adds some confusion, I think. But the CLI is intended to really manage your code and configuration of your dotCMS, things like content types, languages, assets, VPL files, templates, all that kind of thing, stuff that you want to have in source control outside of dotCMS. And we really see the CLI as a replacement for the WebDAV protocol future forward. And before, there's an uproar. WebDAV is not going away anytime soon, but it will die a slow death, right? I mean, we're not going to keep building on WebDAV. We're not doubling down on WebDAV. Instead, I think we're going to say use the CLI. You want to upload 1,000 files, use the CLI and sync it into dotCMS. And ultimately, it's the tool that we're going to point to bootstrap dotCMS installations. We're going to continue to build into it right now. We're about to release, I guess, 1.0 of the CLI, but we're going to continue to build capabilities, being able to interact with dotCMS programmatically from the command line. Yeah, next.
Cool. A little bit of a simpler feature. So what we've heard from feedback on different users is we just kind of need to connect a bit more with what's new and what's coming and how to use certain features. So we've added in an announcements menu. It'll be similar to like the notifications menu up at the top. We'll just be pushing kind of updates from dotCMS, pro tips, release notifications, that sort of stuff. Just so you can follow along. We've also included a bunch of links to the Knowledge Center. We've heard, some users have connections to our support team, and a lot of other folks don't necessarily know where to report a bug or request a feature. So we're adding a lot more direct links to get feedback from dotCMS end users. Simple feature, but hopefully it gets us a little bit more feedback we can use to improve dotCMS for everybody.
Yeah, and then communication, I think, between us. I mean, we have communications with some people, but I feel like there's people in the system who don't have the visibility into what's going on with dotCMS and the tool itself. So I think it's going to be a real nice piece.
We'll keep the notifications to a minimum too. Don't expect like a lot of spam. It'll be like, once or twice a month we'll be sending something out. Don't expect, pushes every day.
Okay. Another improvement that's in the current code is the JavaScript scripting API. This is really, really interesting. I don't know how many of you have used the Velocity scripting endpoint. This is just like the Velocity scripting endpoint that'll let you write custom APIs and custom responses from dotCMS, but this new JavaScript scripting API will let you write them in JavaScript. And so what we've done is we've built in a JavaScript engine into dotCMS, and we're going to start, just like we use Velocity in different places, we're going to start using JavaScript as well. And Freddie would know a little bit more. You can import some libraries. It has a limited import capability. I think the way that if you want to use an external library, you can upload it to a folder structure in dotCMS and reference it. But we have automatically built the kind of core libraries that you would expect to find to be able to interact with dotCMS in JavaScript, things like, content searches, checking in content, fetching from remote endpoints. And really, the use case here is to, let's say you want to deliver an e-commerce page and you need to go to a PIM to get the product information, and you need to go to the e-commerce system to get the inventory, and you need to stitch that together in a dotCMS page. You can put all of that into this single JavaScript endpoint, pull that back. You can even cache. It has a caching tool that allows you to cache stuff on dotCMS locally and deliver that as an API response coming from dotCMS. Yeah, and the idea is moving further and further away from Velocity, which Velocity's fine, it's not going anywhere, but starting to sprinkle JavaScript throughout the system.
Yeah, and about the fetching library that we're doing, what we're doing is we're trying to use as much as possible as the fetch API, the platform fetch API that is getting standard now, that is the same that Node.js is using or the browser is using. So you're gonna be very familiar with that one.
Yeah. Yep. So now we're coming to what's next with dotCMS, right? And you can go to the next slide, Vic. The reason I'm laughing is because this presentation almost couldn't come at a worse time for us in terms of dotCMS, because we are literally going into the company-wide, what we call the steel cage match. We call it that affectionately, but we're going into this steel cage match where everyone comes with their, what can we do next? What are their requirements? What are we hearing from customers? What are we hearing from sales? What are we seeing in the marketplace? And we go into a prioritization process and prioritize what's coming next. So in this slide, what's next? We're pretty firm on what's coming next, right? These are what the teams are going to be working on next. And what's coming next, I think Freddie showed a little bit of the new content editing screen. We're going to bring that into the main content search screen, right? And the idea there is to dovetail the browser and the content search screen to be able to produce different views of content, and kind of have one place where you're going to be interacting with content and finding, searching, browsing for content in dotCMS. Moving that to Angular and the new frameworks, that's huge in our, and just overall, just, you know, continuing to polish the UI and UX that we're pushing out. We're also going to be doing some multilingual improvements, and really what these entail, dotCMS is a platform and we have, 100 ways to do the same thing. And what this is kind of going to do is kind of really push people, or say, when you want to implement multilingual sites in dotCMS, here's how you do it. And here's the sort of the structure, the folder structure that we're going to kind of require and enforce. Here's how the languages are going to work, and really put to paper, redo how the language tool in the back end, and lay down how multilingual should be handled in dotCMS, because we have customers that are using plugins to do multilingual, or rules, or vanity URLs, or different sites, and we want to support different use cases, but we do want to sort of funnel everyone towards this is how multilingual should be done, so that it's just much more supportable from our side. What's also coming next is block editor. We're going to continue to build into the block editor, and this goes hand in hand with the .ai build out. Right now, we have the ability to have .ai create blocks, but we're also going to have .ai have the ability to select a block and right click and say, rewrite this, make this shorter, make this longer, change the tone, and basically continue to meld and sprinkle AI throughout dotCMS. And then finally, one thing that's really non-negotiable about where we're going is the idea of evergreen dotCMS versioning, right? And for those of you who have been with us for a while, you've seen we've done the LTS transition where we moved to an LTS, and we're continuing to do these upgrades. But we're going to continue to push forward, and our goal is to have everyone in dotCMS Cloud on what we call dotCMS Evergreen, which is going to be a rolling updated version that keeps itself up to date, right? So what you'd expect from a SaaS platform, right? And Damon was lamenting last week. He said a fact that I didn't even know. He said it's so frustrating being a product manager, getting a feature out, and then realizing that only 8% of our customers that are in the cloud are going to be able to utilize that feature within the next year. And that's because those features aren't getting backported to LTSs that the customers are stuck on, and they have to go through a big upgrade process. We want to get rid of that entire process and move to a much more SaaS-y evergreen dotCMS deployment. We're getting some good questions, and these are really good suggestions, and it's a great time to add these suggestions. Can you include permission architecture improvements as well? And what we can do is we can drop that into the steel cage match and get that prioritized, as well as the forms in the future. It would be great for those of you who ask those questions, if you would write one paragraph of what you would want it to do, just to give us some insight there. Send an email to me or to any of us or Vic, and just one paragraph of, I want to use the forms, but I can't because they don't do blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, feel free to call out what it's missing as well, or just feel free to call out any examples that you say, oh, I've seen this, it works better other places. I'm doing this whole thing. Absolutely, we can add that to our discussions.
Yeah. And so what's coming after next? The idea of content analytics, and John was talking about the platform for A/B testing, right? It's a platform really for analytics. So it's basically is there and ready to ingest lots of data and be able to pull analytics based on that. Just having insight into what content's performing, what content's not performing, how many times, I don't know, APIs have been called, anything, and being able to kind of surface that through the dotCMS, we think is really important. We hear it again and again that we need that. Revamping the image editor, it's old code, it needs to be revamped, and we're going to be touching all of the form fields in the redo of the edit mode, but the image editor is one that I think we have our eyes on, redoing that entire interface.
And it's one place where we're looking for add a lot of AI.
Yeah.
Because we think that images could benefit a lot from AI tooling around.
100%. Video management and encoding, the ability to upload videos into dotCMS, have dotCMS, be able to drop one of those videos on the dotCMS with a player and know that in the background that's getting encoded, getting cached, getting delivered via CDN for super speedy delivery. Having that just sort of built out of the box in dotCMS, we think would be a real big value add. Some of these are more deeper improvements, things like merging the idea of binary fields and file fields, and making everything that gets uploaded into dotCMS an asset, and then you can, even on a binary field, it would be just a reference to that asset. Nested content types, this is in field sets, the ability to create and when we were doing some of the SEO improvements, which we didn't even talk about, Damon.
We talked about them last May.
Yeah, when we were doing, but only 8% of our customers have seen it, right? But the nested content types, we wanted to kind of have a single set of SEO fields that we could drop on all of our different blogs and news articles and
you get a whole lot of data for everything, right? Like we want to really focus on that. So you have Google structured data for everything under the sun, open schema data for everything under the sun.
Yeah.
We don't want you to have to redo those fields every single time. If you have an article, here's your 50 metadata fields. Go ahead and fill them out as you want to. But let's keep that block of defined metadata fields all tight. When you go to Google and you do a search, you get all those really kind of rich snippets of like, here's the shopping features, here's the recipes, here's the articles. All that's powered by metadata, right? So the more we can embrace that, the better your search results are going to.
Yeah.
The more content's going to show up in search.
Some other ideas that we've had is embracing schema.org and basically allowing a user when creating a content type to kickstart it by just selecting a schema from schema.org, and have that as a content type and be able to deliver that on your page or headlessly so that it can be indexed and found as well. And then finally, these and next guys, just to be clear, these are ideas that are going into the meat grinder of the steel cage match. So where these come out in terms of priority, these aren't by priority here. These are just ideas. But finally, AI-driven personalization. We were getting asked about personas and how the personas interact with experiments. And we were talking and just ideating the other day. It would be great if personas actually had a prompt. Each persona had a prompt, and then you use that persona when you wanted to personalize a page. dotCMS would automatically generate a personalized version of a given page based upon the prompt that's in the persona. So you could have like an auto personalize for any given page, even auto optimize, where AI is going to be looking and taking a look at and filling in SEO, making it more attractive, what have you.
I'd like to see, there's a question that came in. We'd like to see the feature that allows users to only see content they've created. I think we do have kind of in that next category. This is really just maybe the top 6 of like probably 100 ideas we've been kicking around. And one of those ideas too is kind of improving like our notifications and our content and the ability to follow and track certain things in the system. And so a lot of that would be that permission sharing too, of like, okay, this is a page I created. I don't really want to follow the pages that Will created. I'm going to let him deal with his own stuff. I'm just going to follow the stuff that, that's pertinent to me. Or maybe I share one with Freddie or assign something to Freddie and say, Freddie, I need you to review this or monitor this page. So definitely like that's something we've been talking around. We know that like, making content that's really can flow through a workflow really easily, get approvals from the right folks. That's really key for keeping everything kind of smooth and easy to use.
Another interesting question here from Will Price is saying that 100% on the nested content types. We get lost on relationship and micro contentlets for many content models. Another idea that we're driving or that we're thinking about how to solve that problem is the idea of creating, you got a bunch of names, we call it like region or widgets or sections, but it's basically the idea of group together different pieces of content and be able to reuse those across different pages or even other contentlets. We still don't know how it's going to work, but we are very aware of this type of problem of the micro contentlets. So we're very in traction on that.
Yeah. Another idea, Will, is an idea of having a simplified relationship field that's sort of, let's call it a link picker, where you can specify the user can select between these 5 different content types and they can just build a list of links of given content types. So it's not this two-way relationship. It's not, it doesn't have all the tooling around our current relationships, but just makes that whole process much cleaner and easier for end users.
And if there's anything you can think of after we get done with this, once the notification menu's up, feel free to spam us all day long with your feedback. We will be reading that stuff like, watching it like a hawk. So we'll take all the feedback you want to kick over. Anything you can think of now or anything your end users can think of, all that feedback's really great for us. We really appreciate it.
Cool. Looks like there's another question. Any other questions? Feel free to. We have a bit of time here, so feel free to pop them in the Q&A box. Looks like we have one more that popped in.
Interesting question. Coming in saying, can you add route mapping that coordinates parent-child content types? Things like video, series, seasons, episodes are all different content types, and you create a map of these relationships. But somehow that needs to trickle up to the route of, the way you want the URL to be built is you're going to want the series, then you're going to want the season, then you're going to want the, the episode, and you're going to want that in your URL. And right now our URL maps aren't sophisticated enough really to support that. So that's an interesting request. We do get requests for how to do that and support all the time, how to do sophisticated mappings. But I think that would be, it would be good to have a solid answer to that as well.
If we can't build Netflix on dotCMS, man, I don't know what we're doing here.
Awesome. Well, it doesn't look like there's any more questions, but if there are, then everyone can, of course, feel free to follow up with us. But for now, we'll close it off there, and we will be back with another one of these sessions, probably mid-year, to keep you guys updated. And thanks, everyone, for joining. You'll get the recording shortly after the session concludes. Thanks, everyone.
Great questions.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone.
Guys, thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.